Alright, in this video we'll be talking about how to navigate around Vim, which is something that's just about as important as knowing how to edit in Vim. So let's say you have this folder over here, and I have 3 files, and let's say I'm editing the first one. The first thing to know about navigating is you can use the Hjkl keys. So J to go down, K to go up, H to go left, and L to go right. And let's say you want to jump down a few lines. So let's say I want to jump down 3 lines. What I can do is 3J or 3K to go back up. So let's say I have a bigger file. So if I go to this, and how about navigating horizontally left and right? So let's say over here I want to jump somewhere to the middle. I can do 20L, of course that works, but typically what we'll do instead is to use the W to jump to the next word, or I will use E to jump to the end of the next word. So I can jump to the end of each of these words. Typically I will use E if I want to edit right after this current word, so I'll do E and then A to append to this current word, but more commonly I will use W to jump to the next word and then let's say delete some words. To go back, you can jump to the beginning of the previous word, so by using B. And to jump to the start of the file, you can do GG. To jump to the end of the file, you can do capital G. If you're at this line 84 and let's say you want to jump to the end of the line but not enter insert mode, then what you can do is $, so shift 4 to jump to the end of the line. To go back, you can do shift 6 or the caret sign to jump to the start. If you really want to jump to the start of the line, you can press 0 to jump to where the first character would have been. So now you're in the middle of this big file and you want to jump quickly to the top of the screen. What you can do is shift H or capital H and then you jump to the top. To jump to the middle, you can do shift M. To jump to the end of this screen, you can do shift L. So this is going to work within your current screen. So let's say if I jump to the top, so if I do capital M, I jump to the middle. If I do shift L, I jump to the end, shift H to go to the top. Or if let's say you want to actually scroll through the file, then you can do Ctrl F to go forward to the next page, or you can do Ctrl B to go backwards. If this is too much for you, you can do Ctrl D to jump down half a screen, scroll down half a screen, and Ctrl U to jump back half a screen. But frankly, I don't actually do this. I think a more efficient way for me is to go into my Vim RC file. So if you have a Vim RC file, you can enable mouse support. So at the bottom of the file, I have set mouse equals to A over here. And so what this essentially enables you to do is you can scroll through your files using your mouse. And I find this much more convenient than using Ctrl F or Ctrl B. But this is up to you to experiment and try out. So if you go back to the previous file, I can now scroll through the file just like that. But if you still prefer to not enable mouse support and you still want to scroll through your files relatively quickly, what you can do is shift square bracket or curly bracket, and that will jump by paragraph. So the closing bracket will let you jump forward, opening bracket will let you jump backwards. Alright, the next few shortcuts are about how to edit multiple files at the same time. So let's say I have this file bot.py open, and let's say I want to open a new file, so I'm going to do tab new. So I want a new tab and I want this to be the navigating.java, and then I have 2 tabs over here and which I can click to jump, or if you don't have mouse support enabled, you can do GT to go to the next tab. And let's say you have a third file, let's say empty.java, and now let's say you want to jump to the previous file, then you can do G capital T. But frankly, it's not going to be very efficient or convenient for you to jump between tabs here and there. So more commonly, what you might want to do is to do a vertical split. So I will do vsplit, and I can split this tab into, let's say, this and empty.java, and then I have 2 windows over here. And then to jump between these 2 windows, I can do Ctrl WW to go to the next window and Ctrl WW to go back. Alternatively, if you have mouse support enabled, you can jump to exactly where you want to edit in the next window by clicking. And so you can open up multiple of these windows. So let's say I do split again of bot.py, then I end up with 3 windows. And if I want to close the current window, I would do :Q as per normal. And in fact, you don't actually have to spell out vsplit. You can actually just do VSP and type up the file. And if you want to split it horizontally, you can just do sp bot.py, and then we have this sort of more spread out layout rather than everything squashed together in 3 columns. So this is up to you how you want to customize. You can do vertical split followed by horizontal split or other variations depending on what you are comfortable with. So let me get out of here, and let's say you want to run some of these files. So one way you might do this is to do : and say I want a vertical terminal, and then I have a terminal on the vertical side over here. And you notice it's in the middle, which is a bit weird. So I can exit off here by pressing exit and jump to the other window, and I can do vertical term. I don't even have to actually spell out terminal. I can just do vertical term, and there I have a terminal over here. And now I can run commands such as compiling my navigating.java and then running it. And then if you're done, you can just exit out of here. But now let's say you're starting from scratch and you are out here. How are you going to open up all your files in that vertical split mode? The way to do that is to say vim -O. So this is going to open everything in the vsplit mode. So I can do bot.py, I can do empty.java and navigating.java, and this will open everything in the 3 columns. Alternatively, if you prefer having the tabs, then you can do vim, so the previous command, but change this to -p. This will give you all the files in the tabs. If you want a, let's say, horizontally split files, you can do -O, and this will give you horizontally split files. Alright, so I'm going to go with the vertical one, and let's say I have these 2 files. And in fact, to create a terminal, you don't actually have to spell out vertical, you can just do vert term. This will open up a terminal. If you prefer the terminal to be below, then you can just do term, just like that, and then exit out of here. If let's say you want to now open a file that you don't currently have open, how would you go and find that file? Let's say you don't know what the name of that file is. What you can do is you can have a vertical explorer, so vx, and then we have explorer over here, and let's say I want to open up bot.py. If I click enter, this will open up the current file in this current window. So hit enter, here I have my file. I can readjust the spacing just like that since I have mouse support enabled. And if let's say you prefer to have your explorer horizontally, then you can do :sex, and then you have the same thing but in the horizontal mode. But I prefer having the vertical, so typically I will use vex instead. Alright, the final tip or shortcut that I have is not exactly related to Vim. It's more applicable to Linux in general. But let's say you have, currently you're editing navigating.java, and so let's say I want to pause this because let's say I have another file over here which is empty.java. So I'm editing these 2 files at the same time, and I don't want to have to keep running the commands to open up these 2 files in these 2 windows. Then what I can do is Ctrl-Z to stop the current process, and then you see that I've suspended Vim navigating.java. And what this actually does, this Ctrl-Z, is that it puts your current process into the background. So if I type BG for background, I can see that I have this process in the background. So to go back, I can do foreground and bring this process back into the foreground. So while you have this process stopped or suspended, I can run other commands, I can compile other files, and do whatever I want. Another use case is, let's say you have this file currently and then you want to make some edits. So let's say I do public static void, and then I'm not sure how to continue. I want to pause this for a while. I can do a Ctrl-Z, and then we have suspended this process. And notice that if I do FG and go back, my changes are still there, even though I did not explicitly save my changes. And so this is pretty convenient. And in fact, if let's say you're working in a bigger project and you have, for instance, you have another set of files, let's say I have now bot.py, and you're also making changes here. So let's say we are editing the documentation over here, then let's say I change this to starting. And now if I do Ctrl-Z, I now actually have 2 processes suspended, and I can jump between those 2 as and when I need. And so the way for you to manage this is to type jobs, and then you can see I have job 1 that's suspended. Vim navigating.java is just the command that you ran to start that process. So vim bot.py was the second process that I started up to edit bot.py, and now I can choose which one I want to go back to. So if I do foreground and say I want to bring to the foreground the first process, then I'll go back into the Java files and Ctrl-Z again. If I do jobs, if I want to jump to bot.py, I can do foreground, but bring me the second process that was stopped. And now I'm back here. I see my changes are still here without actually having to save them. So you can sort of see that even as you work on more and more files, it's still not too difficult to manage it. In fact, if let's say you have more of these jobs, let's say you have 3, 4, 5 jobs, it's not that feasible to see which job number it is. So in fact, what you can do is, let's say you already know the file name or the command that you used, then you can do foreground, and then let's say this time I want to search for, so the question mark just says find a job that has this string contained. So let's say find a job that contains ing in it, then I'll bring to the foreground that particular job. So it's really very convenient. If I want to undo my changes, I just press U to undo, and here I'm back. And then if you're done, you can do :QA to quit, and now you see my jobs. I have only 1 job. Notice that the number doesn't change, so it's still job number 2. If you do foreground and %1, you won't find any such job because there isn't any such job. So what you need to do is either foreground %2, or you can just do foreground since that's the only job available. And now if I quit, we are done. So this has been quite a brief overview of how to navigate around Vim. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. And if you have any tips and tricks on how to navigate faster in Vim, feel free to share them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.